You claim to be Jewish, but you're not Jewish.
I never claimed to be Jewish.
You claim to be Jewish, half Jewish, a proud American Jew, a Latino Jew, and a non-observant Jew. They're all direct quotes from you.
So, no, not falsely claiming I'm Jewish. I'd always say I was raised Catholic, but I come from a Jewish family, so that makes me Jewish.
But again, because you're not Jewish.
Well, I never said I was.
For generations, people have debated one of the biggest questions in history. Who are the descendants of the ancient Israelites? Today, different groups have very different answers to that question. Some Hebrew Israelites groups urge that people of African descent are connected to the ancestral Israelites. Others challenge traditional idea about Jewish ancestry and point to historical events, migration genetics, and biblical interpretation. One theory that often appears in this debate is the Khazars theory, which claims that some Europe Jewish population are mainly descended from Khazars who converted to Judaism centuries ago. However, these claims remain highly controversial among historians and genetic researchers. So, what is history? What is religious interpretation? And what is actually supported by evidence? In this video, we are going to break down the argument, the DNA claims, the Bible identity, and why this debate continues to...
The black people, the Hebrew Israelites, the ones that everybody says, oh, no. Some of them get lost and say that they're only saved because of their skin. That's not true. Everyone is saved when everyone admits those people were the ones that were enslaved all throughout time. Then you cling to their lineage, not them, but to the father of them. Yahusha was a bronze-skinned man. The Jews of now are white people claiming to be black people. It is a lie. They even changed the definition of that in the dictionaries. But when you recognize that, and you recognize that they were enslaved, then you can truly have truth, so you can be accepted by the Father. His name is Yahuwah. The whole J or Jew term was conned by the Khazarians, the Germans, and the Ashkenazis. And it's a lie. You're not saved by skin, you're saved by faith. But you have to recognize what skin had it. Shem was a dark man. That's it.
Perhaps hundreds of millions of people with this identity right now of being from the people of Israel. Does that mean they were from the 10 tribes? Likely not. We were taught by the historians and within our own traditions that when the Romans conquered Judea, a few hundred years after that the tribes of Israel went into exile, perhaps millions of Judeans were sold into slavery. Into Africa, into Rome, deep into Africa. And if you look now, you're seeing people who are most likely the descendants of those slaves who kept true. And they said, we're Israelites out in Africa. You know, everyone laughed at them and they said, African Israelites, these people are just trying to jump on the first world country bandwagon. They're living in a third world country. They got nothing. We're coming to Israel. We got innovation, technology. So they're trying to get on this train because there's such a thing called the right of return. All descendants of the Jewish people from around the world are able to move to Israel. So they said we are also. And everyone kind of laughed at them, like I said. And a few people took it serious and went out there and started studying them, learned about their culture. And a professor from Duke University went out there and did DNA testing on them. And he showed not only do they share Semitic genes from people who were in Yemen and back to the Middle East, these gentlemen, a large percent of them, have the Y chromosome to be Kohanim, to be priests. Now, if anyone who doesn't know, a priest is a specific family clan of the nation of Israel who come from Aaron, the brother of Moses, who was the first priest. And anyone descended from Aaron has the status title priest. And we found that these men in this village in South Africa called Lemba, L-E-M-B-A, carry this genetic marker to let us know that they share the same as from the Sephardic and the Ashkenaz and the population of the people in Israel today. They share the same exact DNA marker. That's mind-blowing. So everyone kind of got humbled a little bit who laughed at them and said, now what? Now what do we do about this? This could have tremendous implications. Another area in Africa you have something big happening is in Nigeria. You have the Igbo people, or Igbo, pronounced either way. There's 40 million of them, but also a lot of them are now coming out and converting back or adopting the rules of the Torah without all the paganism that they've been practicing for hundreds of years. And where it gets interesting is, in America, there was a slave trade. And a lot of the slaves, a very high percentage of them, came from Western Nigerian ports. And in America today, you see a very large movement of African Americans who say that they're the real chosen people, that they're the children of Israel, they're the Judeans. So what are they just trying to create an identity for themselves because they were slaves, or is there really something here? And the answer is, most likely there is something there. And most likely, maybe that they were the original Israelites, and maybe that the Jewish people today who are white, Caucasian people came in a little bit later on. So here we are, we're Caucasian Jewish people, and now you have people in Africa saying that they're the real people of Israel. It can't be ruled out at all. We know they were sold into slavery. We know now that they're fulfilling prophecies by saying, we're coming back.
Hey, check this out. Look below. You are the true Jews. I've only just realized that I'm not a true Jew. I'm just Jewish. You are the Lord's chosen people.
I've got one that can see.
Now, to all the Jewish folks, what happened when your youngs, male and females, start reading the Bible for real and fall into a verse like Jeremiah chapter 16, verse 19? And you could go look this up. O Lord, my strength and my fortress and my refuge in the day of affliction, the Gentiles shall come unto thee from the ends of the earth, and shall say, surely our fathers have inherited lies, vanity, and things wherein there's no profit. There will be a time when the entire earth will realize who the Bible is for. Who are the 12 tribes of Israel? Who are the real Jews? That time is now. What are you going to say to your children when they realize the people that have been oppressed in America are the people whose identity you stole? And what happened when they realize that because of your lies, you put them in a situation they can't get themselves out of? Because God will answer for everything. No shalom, la shalom.
Heard of the Kuzalim?
Yeah, that's us. That's me, actually.
Okay, so what is your... this is a question that comes from outside of Israel. What is your opinion about the theory that Ashkenazim came from Kuzalim?
It seems relevant. It's quite obvious that white Jewish people, Ashkenazim from Europe, are not genetically, as much as I can tell, I'm not an expert, but they don't look the same like Arab Jews, people that came from Arab countries, and Ethiopians. I don't think there's a lot of, there may be some genetic relations, but there's a lot of genetic differences. And any theory that says that we're not genetically come from the same ancestors makes sense to me.
Ashkenaz is one of the Gentile nations. Now, 80 to 85% of today's so-called Jewry, those who claim to be Jews in the world today, 80 to 85% of them are what is known as Ashkenazi Jews. And an Ashkenazi Jew is so named because he primarily descends from this guy in the Bible named Ashkenaz, which is clearly listed as one of the Gentile nations. Now, the reason for this is that there was a nation of people who were Europeans, white people, known as the Khazars. And in the 8th century after Christ, the whole nation of the Khazars turned unto Judaism. They converted to the religion of Judaism. Of course, it was a false, Christ-rejecting religion. And for a few hundred years, the empire of the Khazars was a power in Eastern Europe, and they followed the religion of Judaism. but eventually they were defeated by the Russians and they were scattered into Eastern Europe. And so a lot of the Eastern European Jews today are the descendants of the Khazars.
And so a lot of the Eastern European Jews today are the descendants of the Khazars.
I was today years old when I found out.
Ashkenaz, the eldest of the three sons of Gomer, the son of Japhet, and the name of a kingdom, referencing these same verses. Most likely it was the Scythian kingdom. And then after a few hundred years, they're lost from history. So they have zero to do with Israel, zero to do with Jewish people, zero to do with Ashkenazi Jews today. Zero. You say, well, where did the name Ashkenazi came from? So a little over 1,000 years ago, as Jewish people scattered around the world had now emigrated in Europe and now were living in the Rhineland in Germany, they looked at the name Gomer in Genesis 10, and they connected Gomer with Germany, so they took on the identity of the name Ashkenaz. It has nothing to do with Ashkenaz in the Bible, which is a descendant of Japhet. It's just a name that was taken. Okay, it's that simple. Just like my last name Brown doesn't refer to the color of my skin or anything else. It was shortened from a Russian name when my grandfather came over at Ellis Island. The name got shortened to Brown. It's just a name. That's all it is. So the idea that Ashkenazi Jews are descended from Japhet is a myth, 100% false, zero truth to it. Just study the history, look into it, check the Bible dictionaries, encyclopedias, the archaeological works, you'll find the exact same thing.
Key takeaway points and food for thought. 1. The original Jews are defined as those from the line of Judah. Judah was the fourth son of Jacob. 2. Ashkenaz was the first son of Gomer and is from the line of Japheth and not Shem. 3. They labeled themselves as Ashkenaz but claimed to be from the line of Shem. If they knew their history, would this error have been made? 4. The term Ashkenazi Jew is historically incorrect, as previously mentioned Ashkenaz and Judah are from separate lineages. 5. They self-identified as Ashkenazi and were not labeled as such. Due to the confusion in establishing their true lineage, one could suggest this has been a ploy to hijack the identity of an already established people. 6. It's claimed that the Ashkenazi people have been lost to history. But, are people ever lost to history, or are they invaded, conquered and assimilated?
I'm a Palestinian. From 21 until 48, I carried a Palestinian passport. There was no such thing in this area as Jews and Arabs and Palestinians. There were Jews and Arabs.
Don't you... I mean, you deny that there was a Palestine Arab people before, but there is now a Palestine liberation movement. The history of liberation movements are that they grow. Won't this one grow and become in end, in fact, your biggest enemy?
I don't say there are no Palestinians, but I say there is no such thing as a distinct Palestinian people of all the Palestinians who live in Jordan. Why have the Palestinians in the West Bank become more Palestinians since the 5th of June 67 than they were before? Why didn't they set up a Palestinian country in addition to Jordan? Supposing your premise is right, then what should they have done? They should have set up another independent Palestine and fought from there. They didn't do that. They adopted the fact that they are in Jordan. They've adopted the Jordanian citizens. They are the majority in Jordan. They are in parliament. They are in government. What has happened since? Why have they become more Palestinian conscious since the War of 67?
This feels like Christmas morning. I got a 23andMe ancestry and health kit. I think that I kind of want to start with the ancestry side. And it says ancestry composition. I'm 49.9% Ashkenazi Jewish. That's not a huge surprise to me at all, since my mom's side of the family is completely Jewish. My dad's side is not Jewish though. So let's go to there. Let's see what's going on. This is like, I feel really like on the spot. Okay, so I'm 100% European, which again is not a huge surprise to me, but it's just funny seeing it like that. I'm 49% Ashkenazi Jew, totally. British and Irish and German and French, a little bit Scandinavian, Northeastern European. Yeah, it's not super exciting, but I kind of know all of that information. I didn't realize how much of my family was from Germany though, so that's interesting. So let's see if I can get more information on this. It's funny, like I know where like my relatives and stuff came from, but it's kind of fun to see it broken down like this. Yeah, totally not surprising having the British and Irish be pretty strong. The German is though, so I wonder who came from Germany. I wonder if it has to do with the Ashkenazi Jewish part of my family. No really Scandinavian, no Italian. Wow, okay. It's pretty vague. It doesn't give you like, which it makes sense, but there's nothing really random in there. There's a tiny bit of East Asian and Native American, like the slightest. The first thing that they're telling me to do is do the late onset Alzheimer's disease. I do have some dementia in my family, so I wouldn't be super surprised if this was positive, but my heart's racing a little bit. I don't know. So I don't have the whatever, however you say that. So there's zero variants detected, which is, I guess, a positive thing. Cool. So Parkinson's disease. Let's open that guy up. I know that's like a very, so I have 0 variants detected. So age-related macular degeneration, a variant detected, not likely at increased risk. I'm not totally sure what that totally means, but AMD, we're familiar with that condition, but we'll see. I'll do more research on this. Have a slightly increased risk of celiac disease, which I've actually been tested by, like I've gotten blood work and stuff done for celiac disease. And I definitely, gluten is harder for me to digest, but yeah. Interesting.
Let's unravel the mysteries behind Ashkenazi genetics. Ashkenazi Jews are a Jewish diaspora population who formed in the Holy Roman Empire around 1,000 years ago. The total Ashkenazi population is estimated at 10 million people. Today they live mostly in the United States as well as in Israel, where they represent over 1/3 of the Jewish population. They are descended from Levantine Jews who mixed with native Europeans, mostly from southern but also from Eastern Europe. The combination of European and Levantine admixture makes Ashkenazi Jews genetically close to Southern Italians, Sicilians, Greek Islanders, or Maltese people. Using ancestral populations, Ashkenazi Jews can be modeled as being roughly 49% Anatolian Neolithic farmer, 24% steppe, 13% Natufian, and 9% Iranian Neolithic, with minor Caucasian, North African, and East Eurasian contributions. Get your custom DNA report today at world-genetics.com.
The results are in, y'all. And good news, I'm not from the Walmart discount section. First up, we are 50% Jewish. Woo! Yes, I did have a bat mitzvah. Next, we got 26% Indigenous Americas, aka Mexico, aka Aztec warrior. Then we got 14% coming from Spain. Shout out to all those conquistadors. Then 3% Basque. Interesting. This is like the full little map thing they give you. And then I also get to see people I'm related to that I've never even heard about before. Kind of crazy, kind of cool, it's kind of scary.
So you know how in Israel there's a law that bans Israeli Jews from marrying Arabs, Palestinians, Muslims? And they say that this is based on the morale of their holy book, right? But I'm about to show you how this just goes to show that these people don't know the book. And really this law, like about everything else in their regime, is based in white supremacy, racism, and ultimately mid-20th century eugenics. Because the thing is that the most famous and beloved of the Israelites and the Israelite kings, they weren't purebloods. Solomon's mother was a Canaanite. David's grandmother was also a Canaanite, a Moabite to be specific. And a Moabite so famous, she got a whole book in the Bible named after her, the Book of Ruth. What's more is that Ruth and Bathsheba, the mother of Solomon, both of these women were widows. And the widow is the carrier of the greatest secret in alchemy. The Freemasons are going to be pretty pissed about me revealing this. But what we call the Philosopher's Stone is actually the widow's elixir. And the sons of the widow are the real heroes of humanity, which is why a Freemason is otherwise called the son of the widow. Also, hi, I'm Eliane, and I wrote a PhD on political identity in Palestine and Israel. Oh, you thought I was just a little twitchy witch? No, that's Dr. Twitchy Witch T. I also wrote a master's on alchemy and Jungian dream analysis. I know everything. And I've read all of Abraham's books, cover to cover, and some of them in their original language. I'm not from Israel or Palestine or anywhere else but the earth. I have no ethnicity, believe in no nation, and identify with nothing but humanity. And if you're watching this, then you're probably someone who wants to see a world without borders, just like me. And you're also probably someone who understands that identity politics benefits no one but the capitalists. Because the more identified you are with an age, a gender, a sexuality, a nation, a religion, the easier you are to market to. But the less you identify with, the more you understand that identity is fluid and that you change every single day. That as you watch this video, you're not the same person who watched the last video. Then you're really hard to pin down and categorize. It's really hard to put you in a demographic when you're a shapeshifter. But anyway, back to Ruth, whose book I encourage you to read because it's really short. But basically, Ruth lived with an Israelite woman named Naomi. She got married, her husband died, and eventually when Naomi was sending her and her sister back to her tribe, she decided to stay with Naomi because she loved her so much. She was like, please Naomi, let me go with you and worship your God. Naomi approves, takes her back with her to Israel. She marries an Israelite and eventually becomes the grandmother of King David, a man after God's own heart. And then David, who's basically God's favorite ever, he has a whole harem of Israelite wives that he wins in battle and whatnot. He eventually falls in love with a Canaanite woman named Bathsheba. He sees Bathsheba and she is so beautiful, like man's cannot contain himself. So he sleeps with her even though she's married, and he has such a good time, like he cannot forget that. He wants some more, so he basically sends her husband out to battle and conspires to have him killed so that, he can marry her in peace and have her have his babies. But this makes God angry, and he sends one of his prophets to tell David a whole fable with a moral lesson, which I can get into in another video because it's a super cute story. But basically the lesson is that, like, David, you literally have everything. You have a whole harem of wives, and this poor man, Uriah, had the one wife, and you took her away from him. That's so greedy, bro. And for that, I'ma punish you and unalive your first child with Bathsheba, because I know she's pregnant. But David repents, and God forgives him, and he keeps going. Bathsheba has another son, and his name is Solomon. And we all know that Solomon goes on to be like the King of Kings. Solomon is bestowed the honor of building a temple for God, an honor that God did not give to David or anyone before Solomon, and hence the importance of Solomon's temple. The temple built by Hiram Abif, the king of Tyre, who was also a widow's son, who's really the main character in Freemasonry and the Bible's most famous alchemist, and who it is speculated was Solomon's relative. And if the genealogies are correct, and Jesus Christ is really the descendant of Solomon and David, then Yeshua was also a Canaanite. See, because Yahweh says a lot of things throughout the Old Testament that you might think are just absolutely horrid. But even though he has a rep for doing what he says, he doesn't actually follow through on most of the stuff he says he's going to do. Like he repeatedly says throughout the Old Testament that no one is ever going to remember the Canaanites, that the Israelites, they're going to erase them, they're going to eradicate them from the face of the earth, and no one is ever going to hear about them again. And yet here we are, you and I, talking about them. And there goes Yahweh, one book later, picking a Canaanite's descendant to be his favorite king. Bro is a talker, okay? Half the stuff he says, if not more than half, doesn't come to pass. And the modern state of Israel, as we should all know by now, has modeled itself on European colonies, and specifically the French colony, and German tactics for apartheid. Specifically here, that in order for one to maintain a purity of race, which I also don't believe in because it's not scientific, laws need to be implemented to ban intermarriage. But a little bit of critical thinking will show you that if anybody can convert to a religion and then get married, is there any purity of blood being maintained here? Anyway, I think I've rambled enough for now, so come to my live.
Let's begin with the biggest question. Who are the ancient Israelites and who are their descendants today? This question is much more complicated than many people realize. The ancestral Israelites lived thousands of years ago, and over centuries, people migrated, communities, mixed kingdoms disappeared, religious spread, and population change. That means trying to connect a modern population directly to ancestral population is not always simple. This is where the modern identity debate comes in. Some members of the Hebrew Israelites movement believe that people of Africa descent are descendants of the ancient Israelites. Different groups within the movement have different beliefs, but some point to biblical passages, historical suffering, cultural traditions, and interpretations of prophecy as evidence. For them, this is not simply an academic discussion. It's about identity. It's about asking, who were the ancestors? What happened to our history? And what was lost through slavery and colonization? Those are serious questions. The history of slavery and colonization did cause anonymous destruction. Millions of Africa were separated from their families and communities. Names, languages, tradition, and records were often lost. People were transported across ocean and placed into society where their original identity were frequently surprised. So, it is understandable that some people today want to investigate their ancestry and reconnect with their histories that were taken away from the ancestors. But we also have to separate that important historical reality from claims that have not been proven. One of the most controversial theories discussed in the subject is the Khazars theory. The basic argument is that the Khazars are Turkic-speaking people who ruled a powerful, converted to Judaism because the ancestors of a larger portion of Europe Jewish. Supporters of these theories sometimes add that Ashkenaz Jews therefore have little or no connection to the ancestral Israelites. But this is where the discussion becomes controversial. Historians and genetic researchers do not generally accept the idea that modern Ashkenaz Jews are simply descendants of Khazars who replaced the ancestral Israelite population. Research into Jewish ancestry is much more complicated. Genetic studies have found evidence of both Middle Eastern ancestry and ancestry connected to population in Europe among different Jewish communities. And communities themselves are not one single genetic group. These are the Ashkenaz, Stephas, Mishrab, Ethiopian, and other Jewish community with different histories and different patterns of ancestry. So, genetics do not give us a simple answer like this group is Israelites and that group is not. Human history is much more complicated than that. Now, let's talk about DNA. DNA testing has become extremely popular because people want to know where their ancestors come from. Some African communities have tradition connecting to the ancestors Israeli. The Lemba people of South Africa are often mentioned in this discussion. Some genetic studies have found particular Middle Eastern ancestry among the Lemba groups. This has attracted a lot of attention. The Igbo people of Nigeria are also sometimes discussed in the connection with Israelite ancestry because of tradition, biblical parallels, and claims made by some researchers and religion groups. But here is the important point. Finding Middle Eastern genetic ancestry does not automatically prove that the entire modern population descended from the ancestral Israelites. People have migrated through Africa, Asia, Europe, and Middle East for thousands of years. For genetic similarity can have many possibility explanation. DNA can help us understand population history, but it should not be used to make overly simple conclusion about the identity of an entire race or ethnic group. Now, let's move to another one, the Bible. Some people involved in this debate urge that modern ideas about race are being placed onto biblical stories. And there is an interesting point here. The ancestry world did not organize identity in exactly the same way modern society do. The Bible contains stories involve people from different regions and backgrounds. For example, biblical figures has relationship with people from outside their immediate communities. Solomon's stories include the Queen of Sheba, although the exact history, identity, and location of Sheba are debated. There are also many stories involving migration, marriage, war, trade, and interpretation between different populations. This reminds us that ancient identity was complicated, but we should be careful. Saying that ancestry people are and complex identity does not automatically prove that a particular modern racial group is true Israelite population. Those are two different claims, and this is one of the biggest problems with online discussion about ancient identity. People sometimes take one piece of evidence and use it to prove anonymous conclusion. History requires us to look at multiple types of evidence. We need archaeology, we need anxiety texts, we need historical record, we need population genetics, and we need understanding how religion tradition develop over time. No single DNA results or biblical verse can answer every question. But there is another part of the discussion that deserves attention. Psychological. Identity is power. When someone grow and believe one story about their ancestors and later discovered information that challenges the story, it can completely change the way they see themselves. They may start asking questions about their family. They may research their ancestry. They may read historical documents. They may take a DNA test. And sometimes the results can be surprising. For descendants of the people who experienced slavery, this search can be especially emotional because many families lost detailed records of their African ancestry. A person may know that their ancestor came from Africa, but not exactly with which community, language group, or region they came from. That missing information can create strong desire to recover the past, and that desire is understandable. But there is also danger when identity becomes connected to the idea that one group is only true chosen people and another group is completely false. The conversation can become hostile. People can move from studying history to attacking other community. That is where we should slow down. You can investigate your own ancestry without disrespecting someone else. You can question historical narratives without claiming that the entire ethnic or religious population is fake. And you can explore the Bible without turning complicated history into a simple racial competition. The truth is that human history is full of migration and mixing. Population moved, kingdom rose and fall, people converted from different religions, community married into other communities, language changed, border changed, and identities change. That does not make someone's identity meaningless. In fact, it makes history even more interesting. So, where does that leave us? The idea that black are the only true descendants of anxiety Israelites is a religious and historical claim made by some groups, but it is not an established history fact. Now, the past belongs to everyone who wants to understand it. And sometimes the truth is more complicated than the story we were originally taught. So, what do you think? Do you believe more people should investigate in their ancestry instead of simply accepting the history they were thought? And how much should DNA, biblical interpretation, and historical record influence the way we understand the ancient identity? Let me know your thoughts on the comment. And if you enjoyed this discussion, like the video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notification for more conversation about history, identity, culture, and stories that continue to shape our world. So guys, thank you so much for your time. Thank you for watching, and thank you for my returning viewers for always showing up and coming up and supporting. Till next time, God bless. One love.